Hello, and welcome back to the RV Advisors All Things RV podcast. I am your host, Cathy Conrad. This week wraps up my interview with Patrick Stiltner, NRVIA Certified RV Inspector and Repair Technician. So stay tuned for more inspection information on motorized RVs, important regular RV maintenance, and high priority life safety considerations. So can you tell me, when it comes to drivable RVs, where does your inspection end, and what do people do about the other part of it? You know, do you take it to a mechanic to have the engine checked out? How do you cover that whole basis if you're buying a drivable?
So, a motorized RV is, I tell them, I do the house portion and I look at the chassis and I just apply common sense because I'm not a mechanic by any means. I'm not ASC certified on a gasser. I'm not a diesel mechanic or a diesel technician on the diesel side. So I tell them, but if I'm under the chassis and looking at the under the engine and the drivetrain and transmission and rear end and things like that, if I see something, I'm going to call it out. And so if I see the transmission housing has a dry stain around the bell housing of the transmission, I'm calling that out and I'm going to provide a picture. It's evidence-based. And I'm like, I'm no mechanic, but I am using common sense and saying, this is a dry stain. I see a radiator hose that happens to be leaking. I pull the dipsticks. I'm like, wow, your oil should be if it's new oil, it's caramel colored. If it's not, if it's got 5,000 miles or more, it's going to be black. Is the transmission stick is that nice, and I'll call it a salmon color? So if it's not, are those fluids burnt? So yeah, so I'm not a technician, and so what I tell people is that as soon as possible, you need to rather take it into, if it's a diesel pusher, take it into an authorized service center. Like here in the Sacramento area, there's a Freightliner. It's called the Sacramento Truck Center, and they have an Oasis Center. Oasis is specifically for motorhomes. And those guys know they know what they're doing. They got a brand new 8-bay facility, 3 years old, and they really know the diesel portion of it, and so they do a good job. If it happens to be, and I'm just bringing up Ford because Ford dominates the chassis and most gassers. If it's a gasoline, then it can't go to a regular Ford dealership. It's got to go to a Ford Fleet Services Center, where they handle the commercial, because they're all on commercial chassis, the F350s, 450s, and up to 650s. So if you pull it into a regular Ford dealership, they're going to say, well, take it to a Ford Fleet Services Center. If it's Mercedes, like the Class Bs, those, on the Mercedes chassis, the Sprinter chassis, those typically have to go to specialized Mercedes dealers, because they don't work, the regular Mercedes dealers, they only work on cars and SUVs. They don't work on RVs. So you have to seek out those places to take it to. So, yeah.
For inspection and for service, right? So the RV dealerships do not service the motorized part.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? There are some that do have a few mechanics, but they are far and few between. And I always say, for best results, take it to the dealership, take it to a Ford Fleet Services Center, at least for the first time around, and let them put it on a diagnostic machine and take a look at it. RV shops, they may or may not have the diagnostic machines, because those are very expensive, and they may or may not have them. They may have a general mechanic, but for best results, take it to, at least the first time, take it to a Ford Fleet Services Center or a Freightliner center, because Freightliner, they will cover everything from Cummins to Caterpillar to Spartan, and different chassis. So they pretty much have the gamut going on all that, and they're well advised. And then in some cases, like and I'll just give you an example of on a diesel pusher, I did an inspection. I said, I need to refer you to Freightliner, the truck center, and the truck center said the entire front end is completely shot. It is just It's nothing that we can repair here because they don't do suspension work, and it had to go over to a frame shop. And luckily, the repairs were only about $2,000, but still, you know, as an inspector, I looked at it and everything looked okay, but when they dug into it a little deeper, they're like, well, no, it's not so fast. So, and I think they actually had to
Oh.
pull the wheels to make that discovery. They did what they had to do and sent it over to another specialty shop that was able to get the framework taken care of. So, yeah.
So when somebody buys, say they buy a used diesel pusher at a dealership, do they let them know? Do they let the customer know that they really don't service them?
Um,
That they're not
I
equipped to service them? I
I
wonder.
would I would speculate no. So
Wow. So
they rather take it on a trade-in, or maybe if it's on a consignment lot. They may or may not know. They may or may not have that vehicle information to know if it's got what kind of maintenance records it has. That's another reason why, if you buy from a private seller, one of the
yeah,
first things that you ask is, do you have a maintenance records to it? So,
yeah,
because it will paint that picture for you.
yeah,
So,
yeah. But if they're buying a used one, I would
mhm.
hope that the dealership would let them know, hey, here's what we know, here's what we don't know. We don't service this level of,
Yeah.
you have to go someplace else.
Yeah, it just all depends on the dealership and how ethical they are. I would
Yeah.
speculate that the majority of the time that they would not.
Wow.
So that
Wow.
would be total guesswork. So,
Yeah. When it comes to, are you anything else you want to add on that topic? 'Cause that's fascinating because I
yeah.
have not, um, a drivable was not on my radar of an RV to buy. So I
Hmm.
hadn't really started contemplating these things until I knew we were going to chat. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now that you mentioned it, got it.
When it comes to the preventative maintenance, some people might like to do some of it on their own.
Hmm.
But what are some of the things that you would suggest that they leave to the professionals?
Well, you have to know your limitations.
Yeah,
YouTube is a wonderful place and you can really learn a lot from it. There are several guys that I follow on YouTube, but they're very specific. And there are people that I look on YouTube. I mean, for every one good video, you're going to have five bad ones. And
yeah,
so you know, what kind of background do you have? Are you mechanically inclined? Can you do what kind of diagnostic information can you obtain? Are you good? Are you mechanically? Are you good? And there are just certain things, and I kid you not. Well, it's a guy thing, but there are a lot of guys out there like, oh, I can handle anything, and then they get into it,
yeah,
and which creates a lot of my service calls.
yeah,
And they say, well, it didn't look too complicated. And I watch YouTube. I'm like, well, I hear that a lot. And so the biggest thing is that just know your limitations. And if you think,
mhm,
let's just start with the basic stuff. If your cooktop's not working, or let's say your furnace isn't working, one of my first questions is your cooktop working? Can you get a flame? Can you turn your cooktop on and can you get a flame on your cooktop? If the answer is no, then that suggests go look at propane. Is your regulator turned? If you got the disconnect, or if you got it turned in the wrong direction, do you have a tank turned off? So it's those basic things that you can
yeah,
go look at. Okay, and if the answer is, and I'm doing this interview on the phone, and like, yes, I have cooktop, I've got nice blue flame, but my furnace isn't working. Okay, well, great. So then that isolates everything to the furnace.
mhm,
Electrical, they'll say, you know what, the receptacle, the 110 outlet, my household receptacle in the bathroom's not working. Okay, great. So when was the last time that it worked? So there's an interview process. Well, it was working this morning. I had my hair dryer, my curling iron, and one in each hand. I'm like, okay, you see that little bitty light on the GFCI? Push that button. And if it comes back on, and then oh, thank you, you're the best ever. So, but my message is you really have to know your limitations. And if you don't feel comfortable with it, don't do it. So, and sometimes YouTube will give you a false sense of security. There were a few people on there that I thought very highly of, and then all of a sudden they just started doing they started doing things that were not right. And so I'm like, I can't watch them anymore, so I can't follow them, and so but the biggest thing is that know your limitations. Know what you can do.
That's great advice. That's great advice. So what would you say for the DIYers that are, the top 5 preventative maintenance things they should have on their radar?
Okay,
people who are trying to do a little bit on their own.
Okay, here we go. You ready for this? First off, a good pre-trip inspection. Here it is, travel day. And you are ready to depart. Now, this is nothing new. This is what commercial drivers do every day. Before they actually depart, they hook up. So in an RV situation, if you're in a towable, it doesn't matter if it's a towable or motorized. Your RV, you have to do a good pre-trip safety inspection. And I kid you not, you will drive down the road and you're like, oh, that's a water heater door. Or that's a roof vent, because people don't do a good pre-trip inspection. A good pre-trip inspection will keep your en route crisis, your on the road, your in motion crisis down to an absolute minimum. So, did you check the water heater door? I've seen people drive down the. I saw a guy not long ago. His awning was out, and he did a U-turn, not realizing that it was out, and it was right in an RV park, and I was sitting right there, and he hit a tree and ripped the whole awning off. So you're never
so preventable.
Yes, so you're never in a hurry. You're never in a hurry in an RV. So, and that's travel day. Then you're on the look for if it doesn't look right, act right, or feel right, chances are it's not right. So you have to, so here you are in camp and you're all set up and you're like, I hear a noise. I hear this, I hear that, or I see this. You're going to use those 5 senses that you have, your hear, the smell, and all that other kind of good stuff. So, so pre-trip inspection and then a post-trip inspection is always good, especially on towables, travel trailers and fifth wheels. Are your shackles okay? Are the tires okay? Things like that, because in a post-trip or a pre-trip inspection, you could have a cracked shackle, and and people are like, I had no idea. Well, if you looked at them on a routine basis, if you check your tire pressure on a routine basis, a lot of these things can be avoided. So did you close the window? So if you do that good pre-trip inspection, that's one. Number 2 is a good wash and a good wax. Okay. That will preserve your rig for a very long time, especially if it's my rig. I keep it on my fifth wheel. Well, actually, all my RVs, I'm not a full timer, and they're stored indoors. So, but needless to say, if it was out in the elements, I would at least have it washed and waxed at least every 6 months. In my case, I can go a year because I'm on the road probably 4 to 5 months out of the year, so I can get away with that. Once a year, but a good wash and wax. Side note, I don't do it myself. I'm too lazy. I hired a
hard work.
Yeah, it is a lot of work. And so what a wash and wax will do, it will keep you familiar with what's going on with your rig, especially are your walls delaminated. So your walls will actually separate and they'll bubble. You'll see a groove in them. So by doing a wash and wax and just sitting there and enjoying your rig, but keep it clean. Because a lot of things can materialize just by having a dirty rig. Okay. Number 3 would be, that was number 2, right? Number 3 would be roof seals, be it on the roof, be it on the body of your rig, and be it on the slides, and the treatments and how you treat those seals. So A lot of people don't realize that in their RV warranty, if you've got like a forever warranty or you've got a 10-year warranty, it requires a roof inspection to be done whether every 6 months or every year. It all depends on the individual insurance company and or extended warranty that you may have. So
does that have to be done by a technician, or can you self-inspect
typically they want it done
and
by
document it?
yeah, it's
Huh?
got to be documented. And so I have a standard invoice at the time when I know what I'm, if I know I'm out going out for a roof seal, I've got a couple of different scenarios, and I carry a little printer with me, and I can just print it right there on the truck, give them and then tell them, what we did and how and what materials were used, because not all materials are compatible. So, do a good roof seal. And if you're not comfortable getting up on the roof yourself, then it's time that you rather ask a friend or hire somebody to get up there. And then while they're up there, take pictures and text them to me or email them to me. I want to see what those seals look like. And if it's cracked and if water can get in there, water always takes the path of least resistance. Now here in the West Coast, we're about ready to wrap up the rainy season. But once you get past Reno or even Winnemucca, Nevada, it's a whole different ballgame. You're going to have to deal with thunderstorms and rain pretty much year round. Needless to say, so your roof seals have to be good. If they're compromised, you're going to be looking for those cracks in your skylight. You're going to be looking for the cracks in the vents. Anything where water you think might be able to get into and intrude into your rig is paramount. That also goes for the sidewalls on the body of your rig on the side. There. If you look at any given trim, front cap and rear cap. Okay, so your RV is manufactured with a chassis, and then and that chassis is, well, right now most towables, 90% of them in the United States they're manufactured by Lippert. Lippert will manufacture a chassis and send it off to the manufacturer, who builds the house on top of the chassis. And then what do? They sandwich that with a front cap and a rear cap, and that's sealed all the way around. Once those seals are compromised, especially up in the top corners of the rig, that's where you're going to get a lot of water intrusion. Front cap, rear cap skylights are always the worst. Sometimes air conditioners, but most of the time front cap, rear cap, and skylights. So you want to do all that. With the slides, you've got what's called a sweep seal, and it acts just like a broom. It goes back and forth, and it's about that wide. And you have to make sure that those are in good condition and that they're serviceable. You also have a bulb seal, and that bulb seal, when the slide comes in, it's nice and compressed, but not more than 50%. Those seals alone, you need to make sure, because they're exposed to the elements, you're going to need something like an Aerospace 303. I don't endorse that. I don't endorse any product. It's just what I use because I like it. It's something that you can put on there. It's a UV protectorant. And so I use Aerospace on basically anything plastic, to include my air conditioner shrouds up on the roof. If it's plastic, it's okay to, and I use an old sponge, and I'll squirt the Aerospace 303 on the old sponge with gloves on, of course, and I just start wiping things down, especially the seals. So then, and then with your roof seals, you have to know what sealant to use. You just can't run into Home Depot and grab any old sealant.
Right.
It's rather has to be Dicor or Alpha. Those are the two big ones. And then I'm a big fan of what's called Proflex for the clear sealant on the sidewalls of the rig. So, but you have to know, because some alpha sealants won't bond to certain products. Likewise, some Dicor will not bond to certain products. So you have to know. And then you've got Silca, which is in Winnebago. They do their own thing. They march to the beat of their own drum, and they use a very specialized sealant. So if you try to put Dicor on any of their rigs, their manufactured products, it's going to fall right off. It does. It won't cure, and it'll fall off. So next is the tires, and everybody loves to put tire sealant on. My message is don't. Keep keep them dry, clean them with regular soap and water or whatever soap solution you use, and don't put any type of beauty Armor All or anything else like that on. The rubber it's a natural compound, and it will actually start to break down by itself. And when you see that little orange ring around your tire, around the rim, that's a sign that tire is in the process of doing a natural breakdown. So just keep them clean, soap and water, and keep them properly inflated. So every time before I move, I always do a tire check, and that's part of your safety equipment. And then,
so
go ahead.
If you have shocks, with the bushings, I mean, how do you know when it's time to replace those?
Well, in all actuality, you don't in some cases, because you won't really know that unless there's obvious damage to it. You've got a rubber bushing that may not be that may be compromised in one way or another. You got a bolt missing.
It's dry and cracking. If it's dry and cracking, okay.
Yeah. And then, or when you're going down the road and your rig if you've got a lot of excessive movement out of it, chances are you're not going to see that. But if you go with a good quality shock that has a lifetime warranty, like a Bilstein or something like that, Roadmaster's coming out with some really good lifetime shocks and springs. So you could definitely those would be worth the money to have those installed. So and then lastly, or number 5 would be, I would say, you keep your rig clean, keep it dry, and keep it tight. And what I mean by that is that keep it clean, because rodent infestation is a big problem. Okay, people like, oh, you know what? I don't know why what's this chewed hole in my dog food in the bottom of the bag? Well, you should keep that as airtight as you possibly can. Cereal, they love that kind of stuff. And once you get rodent infestation, it's incredibly difficult to get rid of. Chances are they're going to create some kind of problem for you. Now, in 2008, the automotive and the RV industry went to a soy-based product, and so every wire that you have it's the casing on it is soy-based. The PEX plumbing system, that's all the plastic PEX that you have in your rig, that's all soy-based, and they can pick that up and they can eat it. And unfortunately, I wasn't prepared, but I wish I could have done some sent you some pictures or done some screen shares of some sort. Just to show you some of the damage and what a rodent can do. And the majority of the time, it's because of poor housekeeping. So, and then here's a bonus tip for you: batteries. Big time. If you don't have good house batteries, motorized or towable, it doesn't matter. You don't have a rig. You just don't have a rig. If you've got poor 12 volt batteries, if your batteries are going, if they're going on the fritz and they're getting beyond their life expectancy, the slides won't come in, your circuit boards won't work correctly, your switches won't work correctly, your lights will start to dim or they'll flicker. And so you have to know the status of your batteries at all time. You cannot take what you see on your panel when you push the button and says, oh, well, it says it's fully charged. Yeah, that doesn't mean your batteries are good. So there's your bonus tip. Sorry, I went 6.
Thank you. No, that's all right. It's not always easy to narrow down to a few things like that. So we kind of talked a little bit about safety stuff. Did you have anything you wanted to add about like the top safety concerns?
Oh, where do I start? You have to know the weight of your rig. You have to know the combined gross vehicle weight. Can your truck or your tow vehicle safely tow your rig down the road? Okay. And in some states, they're starting to crack down on RVs. Here in California, they're not at this point, but who knows? They'll probably issue a special campaign tomorrow. Who knows? But yeah, it's important that you know your weight. You can't be overweight. You should be about within 20% of under of whatever the max numbers are.
Hmm.
But everything's a little different. And I get calls all the time. I'm going to tow this tandem axle trailer with my compact SUV. I'm like, no. And I'm like, I'm not your guy because it's not safe. And I say no. A lot of people
Yeah.
think, oh, I'm going to go get this or I'm going to go get a 150 series travel trailer or fifth wheel because I can tow it with my F-150 or my 1500 series truck. No, one good gust of wind, and I've got evidence. The good thing is I've got friends in the highway patrol, and so I've got some pretty significant crashes at where 1500 series or an F-150 series truck was pulling something overweight
Yeah.
or at a high rate of speed. So
Yeah.
know your weight's the biggest thing. Safety appliances in your RV. I come unglued when I see a smoke detector without a battery, a smoke detector that's beyond its life expectancy, a CO sensor, an LP sensor, or a fire extinguisher. If all those are there for you, and for your safety, please make sure that all that make sure that they're in good working order, that you vacuum and you vacuum them quite frequently. So when you're cleaning your rig, take a vacuum brush and just brush those out because dust will give you false alarms, or it will
Mhm.
or in the same cases it will also mask an alarm when there really should be one. Fire extinguishers, they might put out a cigar. I'm not quite sure. Maybe a cigarette. I don't know. I'm not a smoker, but so my suggestion is at least go to a big box store, Home Depot's, Sam's Club, Costco, whatever you have available, and buy a 5-pounder. In my case, I've got three: one in my truck, one in the trailer, and then in my storage cargo bay because that's where I grill. I bring my grill out, and if I've got a problem now, as a cautionary note with a fire extinguisher, you may have some difficulties, and I'm not 100% on this, but if I'm not mistaken, you want to be cautious about discharging a fire extinguisher inside the RV, especially if it's a small cooktop fire. I always carry a box of baking soda for that reason, and it sits right next to the cooktop just in case.
Yeah.
Um, so just be cautious, but make sure that your fire extinguishers are in good working order. A pet peeve of mine is space heaters. People use them all the time, and I no. There are a lot of accidents that occur with space heaters, and if you do use the ones, they're cylinder type. They're also tall. I think they're Honeywell makes one. They're at Walmart, and it's got a tip over feature, and it's got two speeds, high and low, 750 watts or 1200 watts, and it's basically a modified hair dryer, and
Hmm.
it gives you heat in 360 degrees. It's the other style space heaters, um, they're detrimental, especially if they give off any type of fume whatsoever. Um,
Yeah.
and your smoke detector, your LP sensors, if they're not in good working order, there are some cases where people have not woke up, and it's always some kind of carbon monoxide or LP sensor, related issue.
Malfunctioning. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, and another big thing with me is absolutely no extension cords whatsoever inside the RV. If you're going to use one, it has to be supervised at all times, and it must be, to me, a minimum of a contractor grade extension cord, not the cheapies that you can buy at your big box store, or not the cheapest ones. You know, if you're going to use an extension cord, which I do not endorse, I don't recommend it, but you should have a good quality, a contractor's grade extension cord.
Yeah. The power
No,
strips.
no.
No.
And those tags that people never really pay attention to, that's on a space heater. it specifically states do not use with an extension cord.
Right. Yeah. So those,
So
like my coffee pot and,
yeah.
all those,
Mhm.
anything that heats up, I put directly into an outlet, but I have a
Yes.
strip for my charger stuff.
Yeah. I would not use that on a space heater. No,
No,
that's
no.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely not. But for
Yeah.
chargers or for, for charging your phones.
Yeah.
Or
I had a customer that I had to go out to at the 49er. It's a RV park out in Plymouth. And I went out and had a chat with her one time. And we were talking, and she says, my breaker trips every morning. I'm like, really? I'm like, so what is it that you do in that during that morning? Well, I get up and I turn the TV on. Then I turn my coffee pot on. I've got the fireplace on, and I've got the and then I turn the toaster oven on, and
mm,
then that's when it trips.
yeah.
I'm like, okay. So you never want to overload a circuit. So the good news is that if you're for a power strip for your phone charger, or your earbuds or something like that, those draw very minimal. They draw minimal power, but at the same time, you don't want to overload that circuit, no matter what circuit it is, whether GFCI or a standalone non-protected GFCI. You never want to overload that. So even here at home, I know the circuit that I use, and I've got on one block on one small power strip. I've got my computer charger, my watch charger, my phone charger, and even then, I don't charge everything at the same time. So,
If they're
so yeah,
plugged if they're plugged in, but you're not plugged into your phone, are they still, should you pull them
um,
out if you're not using them?
you don't necessarily have to because they're drawing such little amperage that it's really not going to affect the circuit in the RV. So, but having everything plugged in and charging at one time, you need to avoid that all the time at all costs. So, and that's why I charge my watch when I first wake up in the morning because I don't sleep with it on. So I charge my phone the night before. I charge my watch in the morning, and then sometimes I'll switch them up, and then I also can charge the computer. So, but I just be cautious about, and you need to be aware of how much amperage that you're pulling from any particular circuit. So anything that moves or generates heat requires a lot of amperage.
Yeah.
So slides and jacks, toaster ovens, coffee pots, fireplaces, all of those items require a lot of amperage. So, and if you're ever popping breakers, yeah, you should stop, take a look around, and say what's going on. Especially if you've got an RV refrigerator, you also have to compensate for the refrigerator if
Which
you're on
will,
electric
yeah.
using that heating element. And so it's all on the same circuit, and chances are that's on a GFCI because it's an exterior plug. So yeah, be careful of that. So space heaters, no extension cords, things like that. Another thing, now, if we want to talk about camping, you have to be constantly aware of the weather conditions. Even just the weather conditions. I always say I use an app called My Radar or the NOAA, and I always say here comes a violent cell, and the best place to see a violent weather cell is in your rear view mirror. And as long as
Yeah.
it's not chasing you, you're good to go. So weather conditions are a big thing.
Yeah.
Even though I can predict the weather in my area, you can't always predict it in Montana. You can't predict it in Texas or anywhere else. So,
Idaho.
uh, yeah, yeah. And also be aware of your surroundings. It's not like it used to be when most RVers were kids and we were happy go lucky and footloose and fancy free. You have to be situationally aware because people know that you're not from that town, and
Yeah.
you're just doing something as innocent as stopping at the grocery store to do something, just to pick up supplies. Just be situationally aware. You're in an unfamiliar environment, so you need that's and for that reason. Um, Another safety concern is have an emergency plan. What's your evacuation plan if you have to bail out? Those emergency windows that are in RVs. You
Yeah.
need to test those. And here's the reality of it: you're going to jump out that window. You're going to be hurt, but you're going to be alive.
Yeah.
So, and then have a bug out bag. And
Hmm.
what is a bug out bag? I use a backpack. in that backpack is at night is my wallet, my phone. But chances are it's going to be my laptop. It may be a day or two of medication, and it may be a change of clothes. That's in a bug out bag, and then all of my emergency contact phone numbers. Because when you have a crisis occur, you're going to have, you may not be thinking clearly, but at least you can open, a piece of paper or a book and says, oh, here's my insurance company. Here's the phone number to whoever, to my towing, my towing service, whatever roadside assistance you may have. So it's the bug out bag. And when I leave the rig on travel day, it goes right behind the driver's seat. So if I have to do an emergency bug out, tire catches fire and my rig's on fire, I grab my bug out bag, I know what's in it, and I walk away. So that's pretty simple. Think through your crisis and consider what your outcome is, because a lot of times you're really close to the situation, so you may or may not be thinking clearly. But if you have the opportunity, sit and think about what it is that you're going to do. I had a mechanical failure one time, and my rig was in a shop, and I pulled out lawn chairs and was at the shop, and nothing I could do. I was dead in the water, so I'm just waiting for them to do something, to give me an idea. It got to be 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and so I had to start thinking about, okay, what's my alternatives? And so I started looking around that particular town for a hotel room in case I had to spend the night. And then it also, because we had my dog, it also had to be dog friendly. So yeah, so those are things. So those are big, and that's just scratching the surface. But those are safety concerns from how you conduct yourself, with the condition of your rig, to an en route crisis, and especially the bug out bag. That should always be available.
Yeah, I've got one in my truck right now.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's a really, really, really good point. And I wonder how many people really think about what or have a plan. So I appreciate you bringing that up. It's really important.
Sure. Yeah, because safety concerns as an RVer, you can talk safety all day long.
Yeah.
So that topic it's endless. So
yeah. What's your opinion on extended warranties as an RVer and also as a technician? So you're on both sides of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You may have one for your rig, but you're also a person who will work on people's rigs who may or may not have one.
Yeah. Well, it's just like insurance. It's something that you have and you hope you never need it, but you're glad to have it when you do. I had a front end jack go out on my diesel pusher, and I was happy that I had that extended warranty. So do you need an extended warranty on a rig that has, maybe one slide and no jacks? Yeah, probably not. But the more complicated your rig becomes, and the more bells and whistles, chances are you're going to need some kind. You're going to have some kind of service that's going to need to be done. So in my diesel pusher, hydraulics I don't like, and I don't work on them. And at that point, I was not able to. I didn't have that skill set, that knowledge, those knowledge, skills, and abilities. So and I bought an extended warranty. And the funny thing about it is, when I went to buy my diesel pusher, bought it from a dealer, and they said it's going to be $7,000. I'm like, okay, for 5 years. Okay, great. I'm like, no, thanks. I'm going to go home and think about it for a while. And they said, well, if you change your mind, let us know. Well, I called the company directly 2 weeks later, and I'm like, hey, I want to take advantage of a extended warranty, and they were like, okay, that'll be $4,800. And I'm like, excuse me? I didn't question it. I went ahead and purchased it. And I never really found out what the discrepancy was between what they told me at the time at the dealership of $7,000 and what Cornerstone in this case, when they said $4,800.
Yeah, markup.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, probably so, because that's what dealerships do.
Yeah.
So if your rig is complicated and you're not mechanically inclined, it might be a good idea. I get calls all the time by extended warranty companies, and I have a policy that everything is paid at the time of service. Some warranty companies, and I don't work with them because they say, no, we want an invoice from you. And I still have a couple of invoices from a couple of warranty companies. And it's been one 6 months and one's been 9 months, and I still have not received payment for those services. So I just tell the customer, you know what, I'll gladly come out to you. I said, and I'll give you an invoice. I'll give you an invoice on the spot, telling exactly what I did. And most extended warranty companies, or warranty companies in general, they won't pay for the service call, but they'll pay for the hourly labor, and within limitations of what it is. So, and I talk to my customers in depth about, what rig they're going to get. Does it have slides? Does it have jacks? Especially if they're hydraulic jacks.
Yeah.
Because one jack is about at the time is I think it's about $2,800. So, and when my jack failed, well, they put a brand new one on, and a year later it failed again. So there was another. Well, by that time it went to $3,200. I paid $65 deductible and got two jacks, and that extended warranty paid for itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when I get it in a travel trailer with maybe one small slide or a slide and mechanical jacks, probably not.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. If there's computer, that's computer screens for controls,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Hydraulics.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Multiple slides, all that's.
Yeah, those the touch panels, I'm not a big fan of. A lot of times they have software updates that you're not aware of, and the first thing I ask is that before I even come out, save yourself some money. Did you call the company and ask them about software update? Does it need one? And can you download it on a laptop and then plug it in and do your software updates? Did you try to unplug it and unplug it? And sometimes they can give you fits. I'm okay. I can burn that calorie and stand there and push a button until the slide comes out.
Yeah.
Or till the awning comes in and out. It doesn't have to work automatically for me. So
yeah. The more bells and whistles, the more things can go wrong, for sure.
Exactly. Yep.
So that's do extended warranties usually transfer with a sale?
Yes, they can.
Okay.
So when you're buying used and new used, it'll be advertised. I'm brokering a couple of deals for people right now. And so one of the things that I put in the advertisement is that it's currently on extended warranty, and it can be transferred. It's transferable. But when you're buying used and they offer that, make sure that you do your due diligence and contact the company to make sure.
Oh, well, gosh. Tell me what you find most satisfying about what you do now, Pat, as an inspector and a technician.
Well, if you haven't learned by now, I've got the gift of gab. So I can talk a lot. My everyday experiences. My business motto is I educate and advocate, and I'll talk to people. And sometimes I probably talk too much, and I can always tell to pause on the phone that maybe I'm talking too much, and I'll be quiet. But it's my everyday experiences. Every call is different. I enjoy meeting people and helping them and educating them, because the RV Academy, people say, "Oh, you teach people." No, I teach people how to use their RV. And I steer them in the right direction, and sometimes steer them. And I've talked them out of buying RVs. I've had people call me up and like, "I really want this RV." I'm like, "Okay," just in general conversation. So that's what's rewarding for me, and that's what I really enjoy. It's just the RV community it's a community like you've never experienced before, and I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. You meet a lot of nice people. You make a lot of friends, and those friendships, they can go lifelong. So, yeah.
That's been my experience. That's one of my favorite things about RVing. It's the people.
Absolutely.
For sure. So, tell us, how can my listeners reach you if they want to be your customer?
Easy. Earlier I said that I always answer my phone, and I answered it. I return all phone calls and emails at 8 noon and 5, emails, text messages, and so on and so forth. The RVacademy.com. That's my website. You can get a lot of good information there, all my services, whether it be mobile RV repair, pre-purchase inspection, RV boot camp, dealer pickup services, meaning I go with you to the dealer. And the list goes on and on and on. I'll even do, in some cases, I'll do vehicle relocation. Anyway, so you can reach me through the RV Academy, thervacademy.com. You can call me, area code 916-714-3765. My phone is never too far from me. And if I have time to talk, I'm going to pick up. But if I'm with a customer or if I've had a really long day, it may be till the next day. But feel free to visit my website, The RV Academy, and I'm located in Roseville, California, a suburb of Sacramento.
So what's your travel radius?
Because I've done a couple of jobs in the Bay Area, and I can say that I don't like it.
Yeah.
For that reason, and the only reason for that is that I spend 2 hours in the car or 2 hours on the truck to get there, do whatever it is that I need to do, a repair or an inspection or something else, and then 4 or 5 hours to get back home. Yeah. So as such, I've decided I'm not traveling anymore. And so if it's not within the Sacramento area, the immediate Sacramento area, I respectfully say no.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Anything else that you want to share with us? And which I'll put all his Patrick's contact information in the show notes too.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you. Nothing I can think of. RVing, it's just a wonderful experience. Yeah. Get out there, and I always say, move while you can, or when you can, while you can, because sooner or later your body's check engine light's going to come on, and you're going to, and it's going to bring you off the road, and you're going to go back into a brick and stick home, just for comfort, just for doctor's appointments, whatever the case may be. Life is a challenge. So while you can, get out and move and see everything. Oh my goodness, if just the things in your own backyard, no matter what they are. Just get out there and enjoy it, because it's a blast. It's a real kick in the pants, and enjoy yourself.
So. Good advice. Lots of it. Thank you, Patrick. It was a pleasure to have you on today. And again, I'm going to put all his information in the show notes. I can tell you, because I've been a customer of Pat's and I'm a friend of his too, that he walks his talk, and he has great integrity and customer service. His boot camp is wonderful. We loved it. It was great. And we had a really fun time. Besides learning a lot, we had a great time.
Yeah.
Pat and Christy and Pepper. I highly recommend his services, and I appreciate you coming on today, and I appreciate how you impacted our RV experience in such a positive way by doing a really thorough inspection on our rig, which we figured was going to, as an outdoors RV, we figured it was going to be fine. It was gently used, but I'll tell you what, it was worth paying the money for the peace of mind. And then after that experience, when I found out he did a boot camp too, I'm like, yep, we're signing up. And it was great. So thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you. And thanks for, just gold nuggets everywhere today, and such great information. And so I'm sure that my listeners will be very happy with what they picked up today from you. So thank you for that. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. It was totally my pleasure. I have the gift of gab, and I just enjoy educating people and helping them out in any way that I can. So, but you're more than welcome. And you've
inspired me with that too, because that's it's really fun to help people out and to educate them, because it's so important. It really is so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you're RVing, to be educated. So. Thank you, Patrick.
You're welcome. Take care.
RV Advisors offers weekly, customized one-on-one consulting services. Our mission is to provide information that will help save you money, save you time, and get you on the road with confidence by shortening the big learning curve associated with RVing. You don't know what you don't know, so let us help you navigate this process and avoid common costly mistakes. We're passionate about RVing and helping you to have the best RVing experience possible. Whether you choose our 8-week, 3 or 6 month package, it will be tailored to your specific needs and meet you where you are on this exciting journey. So reach out via email to Cathy at rvadvisors.net or on Facebook direct messaging for details on our programs. Thank you for joining me this week for RV Advisors All Things RV podcast for part 2 of my special guest, Patrick Stiltner of the RV Academy. For information on Patrick's professional services, please visit his website at thervacademy.com or reach out to Patrick on his cell at 916-714-3765. Thank you again for joining us and wishing you amazing adventures, safe travels, and I hope to see you on the road.